Well, and with that, we're live. I should give you a countdown. All right, so we were going to talk about a lot of things, but I guess the most pressing, and we've talked about this. It's happened 19 times.
In all of Kirby's tenure, or just
I,
what?
get- I hold on. I'll have to see the Chip Towers article.
What we're talking about while Max is doing research is Smile Mondin got arrested for reckless driving, speeding, and so did Bo Hughley,
Well,
the
Hewley,
Hughley offensive lineman. On the same day, unrelated, DeMello Jones is who Smile Mondin was racing with, 75 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. Um, so sound like a broken record, but it's clearly a culture issue. I'm not saying it's a we always talk when Kirby talks about the culture. I don't think there's anything wrong with the culture other than there's a culture of racing and all these kids getting NIL money and spending it on really fast cars, and then they think they're
okay.
bulletproof.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
I didn't mean to. I finally found the paragraph and I got excited. So actually, the number's been updated. It's been 22 times since Devin Willock, and
Wow, since Devin Willock.
yeah,
Wow, that's an alarming number, right?
and yeah. Well, I guess. I
It's a
guess.
problem.
Well, okay. So I guess we can talk about this first and then move on, or not move on, but go to where there's more stuff in the Chip Towers article. There's an update. I haven't read it yet. I probably should have before we got on. Because it looked like the police report was on it to give it more of a understanding. I should probably read it whenever I get a chance. But here's my thing. It's obviously a problem. But what exactly can Kirby Smart do? And I know all the other fan bases in college football, they act high and mighty. I mean, so it's been on Twitter, and I've really tried to stay off Twitter because it's actually been making me more and more angry. I'm getting angry right now talking about it. Because they act like, oh, well, this doesn't happen at any other school than just Georgia. Well, that's not true. It happens everywhere. It just depends on who reports it or not. And Georgia's been such a thing with the accident happening that it's been on the forefront of all these people. So whenever are these reporters, so whenever they get deemed, hey, so and so got arrested on a misdemeanor charge, and then they look into it and see that it's reckless driving or racing, of course they're going to write about it because of what happened after the second national championship parade. But to me, and everyone's like, well, what should Kirby do? What's there's cultural issues. There's a problem with the culture at Georgia.
Oh, racing and having fast cars and driving in a congested area is a problem in Georgia, at Georgia, and you can say it's Athens, Clark County. Sorry, being overly zealous. That could be it too. But don't put yourself in that position. What can Kirby do? I don't know. I mean, seriously, if it doesn't get fixed, freshman and sophomore, you don't get to have a car on campus.
I see. Here's the thing, and I guess my question was more rhetorical because there's nothing he can do. These guys are getting paid. Some are getting paid millions of dollars, and I'm sure if I really don't even want to touch the subject because it is a touchy subject. But if you're black, male, and you're driving a souped up Dodge Charger, which Smile London was doing, probably not the best idea to be speeding like you are.
No.
And whether that's, it's unfair, and it's, I don't know all the statistics that go with that, but I would be a little hesitant. So, I think Athens PD are definitely. I mean, dude, you know how many Georgia football players drive a Dodge Challenger? Almost
70%.
Yeah, and so every time that an Athens police officer sees a Dodge Charger, most likely they go, "Oh, this is a football player." Odds are. So I don't think. I mean, if they didn't learn whenever Devin Willock died, I don't know what punishment are you going to give that is going to resonate with them if somebody that they knew died. I don't know how.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm serious. First 2 years at Georgia, you don't have a car on campus. I'm not, and you create more shuttles, for these guys. I don't know if that's a practical solution, but then also in the news, Trevor Etienne, his DUI was dismissed. Now he didn't get away with it. He's got a lot of community service, and I think he's on essentially probation, drug and alcohol testing. I mean, they outside of giving him jail and suspending his license, he got a pretty hefty fine, but he does not have a DUI. But to me, what he was doing was even crazier, dude. Had any alcohol in his system, first of all, if you have any alcohol in your system, you certainly shouldn't be speeding, nor should you be passing on a double yellow line. And evidently he was doing all those things.
Right.
So, and I get it. You can't say that's a culture thing because he just had gotten on campus from Florida.
So then, and like I said previously, he obviously has done that when he was at Florida. I mean, if you've done it once, you've probably done it.
Chances are it's not wasn't his first offense of driving fast and passing on a double yellow and maybe with alcohol in his system. Chances are, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's silly. So he's going 75. So he's going 35 over a 40-mile zone. And really reading the police report on the AJC article by Chip Towers, I mean, I guess they charge him with racing because the two cars were going at the same pace. But Smile London wasn't racing the kid. LaMelo Jones said he pulled over and approached in the Porsche. He told the officer he was checking on his teammate. So really, it should be LaMelo Jones who'd be charging with racing. It wasn't Smile London. But whatever, they're looking to get somebody is the point.
And it's a $26 bond. So that tells you the seriousness of the chart. You know what I mean? I mean, not the seriousness necessarily.
It's a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor.
It didn't make a $26 bond doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense.
No, it's 10% of a $260 fine. That's what it was, and it's a misdemeanor.
But you get arrested for it, right? You're arrested,
right?
But
right, stupid.
I don't know.
It's really dumb. So, again, I don't know what Kirby can do. I don't think it's a cultural issue. I think it happens. I think it happens everywhere. I don't know. I mean,
I'm not saying it's a Georgia-specific cultural issue, but these kids getting NIL money, buying these souped-up cars, and driving too damn fast is a cultural issue, not just a Georgia football culture issue, but is a cultural issue.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I get, it rubs me the wrong way whenever the other fan bases are acting like Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee. It really grinds my gears that they think, and then the conspiracy figure of having the Magic Man come in and solve all the problems. Kirby's so dirty, runs this dirty program. The fixer comes in. He tells the judge and the police department, "Hey, you got to let this guy off."
That does not. I don't know.
They're
ill-informed if they think the Kirby. Matter of fact, I would say there is a communication issue between the Athens Clarke County Police Department and the Georgia Athletic Department, specifically the football team. I truly believe that. I believe Athens. That kid that had just been on campus for 2 months, came from South Georgia, and there's all these one-way streets in Athens. They arrest the kid for going the wrong way on a one-way street. I mean, that to me, that's a warning. You know what I mean? Hey,
yeah. Again, these 22 are now Smile London. There's probably a handful that are like serious, probably, and then I would say the majority is probably knick-knack. and picky charges. So that 22 number is kind of fake, if we're just being honest.
Still a lot, even if there's 8 to 10 legitimate ones. Since you had, to your point, since you had a teammate die in a speed related accident, that's 10 too many, 8 too many.
Yeah, I totally agree. So here's what's going to end up happening. This is going to be a question at SEC Media Days. This is probably the worst timing if you're Kirby Smart, because now this is all that's going to be.
Well, not only that, he's one of your representatives.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Welcome to the
probably
Flyers.
Not anymore. Probably not anymore. I
wouldn't be surprised if Kirby makes him stand there in front of the cameras and answer. That's
punishment.
Yeah.
I don't know what to take from that. I just find it kind of ridiculous that they're doing. This is just a problem now.
So it was, unless he changed it, Smile Mondon, Carson Beck, and who was the is it
Michael Williams?
Michael Williams, that's right.
Yeah.
Williams. Those are our 3 media day representatives.
Yeah, one of them's been arrested, so great luck. So let's get to football related stuff. I was listening to Cole Kublik. He did a preview or a review of Georgia's spring and Georgia's fall camp. And to me, brought up a really interesting point. The offensive line is going to be really good. I think most of us know what we're going to get in the offensive line is going to be pretty good. Only weak spot, really, if you wanted to point to it, is Truss. But again, Kublik pointed out, really good, looks like a tackle. He said if God made a tackle, it would be Xavier Truss. He just has small things to work on, and he could be in the NFL. And I think that's true. Quarterback, we know what we're going to get in quarterback. Carson Beck, he threw for the third highest amount of yards, or third most amount of yards in college football. What I think a lot of people don't see in this offense is the wide receivers. And I think they're overlooking it. I think Georgia's been so tight end heavy, obviously, because you have the greatest tight end of all time come through. Brock Bowers was the feature, tight end, featured receiver in the offense. And I think with the amount of wide receiver depth that Georgia has and good receiver depth that Georgia has, I think when you look at all these preseason magazines, they're going to have Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, whoever, and Georgia's going to be, they might not even be on the top 10. I would argue, I think it's probably one of the best in the country.
I think it's top 3 in the country. I think, and now we'll have to, one thing we haven't mentioned when we're talking about offensive line, I think losing your center, we'll see how the kid comes in and plays, but losing Cedric Van Pran, it's going to be a bigger deal, especially early in the season, than people are saying. I still believe the offensive line is going to be solid to really good. And you're right. We've got snubbed, how many years in a row from the Joe Morrow Award? So
every year since it's been created.
Yeah. So I believe the offensive line is going to be good. And I also understand what Kublik is saying with the wide receiver. It's not that Georgia has, Marvin Harrison Jr. the third or whatever the hell his name is. We don't have that type, but what we do have are guys that it's just incredibly deep, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere you look is really good receivers.
Yeah.
Really good quarterback.
I mean, think about it. Dylan Bell, who is, I don't know if he'll make a transition to the NFL. He's a really good college player.
I think he will.
And can play that Deebo Samuel role really well, I think. You got Ra Thomas, Dominic Lovett, Colby Young, Arian Smith, that Leonard Dickerson kid from Vanderbilt, who I think is going to be really good.
Yeah. Got the Evans kid.
Anthony Evans. Who
We're
else?
missing some, man. We're missing some that are probably really important. But the point is, extremely deep wide receiver.
Extremely deep. And think about this, too. Not only do you have just a plethora of wide receivers that are good, you also have Delp, you have Lawson Lucky, and you have this Yurchik kid coming in from Stanford. And then Jaden Rydell, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That kid,
So,
I don't know how much playing time he's going to get, but if you look at him, he looks like a football player. He's built like a football player.
Think about all the formations that Mike Bobo can do with all these guys, and then add in ETN, and then add in Branson Robinson, and add it, and then have Dylan Bell also at that running back with the two running backs on either side of the quarterback. The amount of formations that this offense can have is going to be ridiculous.
And you can have one formation and run 10 different plays off of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the beauty. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at the offense, which group is the most undervalued and underappreciated? It's Georgia's wide receivers. I think.
I would agree. Just the depth there, I think, is one of the things that's going to separate Georgia. They got the kid, like you said, Colby Young. He's got the red zone threat with being such a big guy. You got a big tight ends down there. I don't think wide receiver is certainly not a weakness. I think this as a group may be the best wide receivers class Kirby Smart's had at Georgia as a group.
Yeah, and look, we said that last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's only gotten better, and I think this Georgia offense, if it's not averaging 40 points a game, I think that would be disappointing.
I would agree with that. I've got high hopes for this year's offense.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what it looks like, obviously, week one. I think Clemson's defense is going to be pretty good. So,
I think it may take a while for us to gel. I mean, but by third week of the season, we should be hopefully rolling.
Totally agree. All right, so we can go one or two ways. I guess we'll save this. Actually, we'll just go one way. I listened to the Stetson Bennett interview, and I thought this was just interesting as a general topic. I texted it to you. So Stetson was on with the Onward Reserve CEO. Let's see what the podcast name is. This is a really professional. It's called Unreserved, which is great. Now, not to really critique the podcast, because I obviously listened to the whole thing. You have to be really engaged on this podcast because they're both two people that really give considerate answers and talk. There's not a lot of inflection in their voice. I guess I could criticize myself. So you have to be engaged. But I think it was interesting. A lot of people and a lot of media outlets have taken the Stetson's favorite moment was the Georgia-Tennessee game in 2022. And, the audacity that Tennessee was the number one ranked team in the country at the time. I don't think that was really the biggest noteworthy thing. I think the biggest part was very early on in the conversation whenever they were talking about his journey at Georgia and his whole life story. JT Daniels, we all know, the whole saga between JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett in 2020 and then going into the 2021 season. But the Vanderbilt game, when Georgia just ass kicks Vanderbilt up there, and they get up 28-0 in the first half or first quarter, I guess JT Daniels felt something in his wasn't his rib, wasn't it an oblique injury?
Yeah, an oblique injury, yeah.
And he felt something, and rather than talking to the doctor and getting him to check it out or doing anything of the necessary protocol, JT just said, I'm done. And that pissed Kirby off. And then Stetson went in. Stetson played well. And then they played Arkansas the next week. He played well again. And that was all she wrote. JT Daniels never got onto the field again in a starting role. I don't even think he got onto the field until it was the Florida game at the very end.
I think so. Mop up duty, yeah.
Yeah, and Stetson said he sucked that game. So to me, the takeaway from all that what I came to, and it'll be interesting to hear what you have to say. When Georgia was losing to Alabama in the SEC championship, it was never a thought to take Stetson out. Then, whenever you get to the national championship, second time against Alabama, and you're down 9-3, or was it 9-6 at halftime?
Yeah,
and the offense has been sputtering and the defense has been playing its balls off. And Stetson, go ahead.
And at the end of the third quarter, Stetson fumbles it on that fumble.
Right. Well, I'm not even going there. I'm just talking about Stetson at the beginning of the game. I mean, he almost threw a pick. He fumbled the ball, and somehow it bounced back to himself. I mean, nervous as hell. At halftime, it was never a thought. And a lot of people on Twitter, because I remember whenever we were there and you were eating a pizza at halftime, and we were saying, I was on Twitter and people were like, put in JT. Everyone was willing to let Stetson go at that point. It was never a thought. Stetson got in there and he stayed out, and then the legend was born. So to me, I think that if we're going with the biggest storyline of 2021 outside of the national championship as a whole, I think that part really tells you a lot about Kirby and tells you a lot about JT Daniels, and it also tells you a lot about Stetson Bennett.
Right. No, the first thing that you said, outside of the what was it, Good Morning America, if that's all you've ever seen Stetson interviewed, you probably should do yourself a favor and watch him be interviewed again, because he is a very thoughtful, very deliberate, tries to give, I believe the reason it takes him so long to answer a question, you can see him thinking about it in his mind. I think he's trying to give the most exact answer and the most honest answer that he can. And you have to give it to Kirby. A lot of people, and look, early on, I was probably one of them, talking about not being able to manage the quarterback. Kirby treats the quarterback very similar to he does every other position. And what does he say is one of their mantras? Physical toughness. Right. And if you're not going to be tough and you take yourself out of the game and don't follow protocols and tap out just because you think you got a lead, Kirby wants to just squash the other team. And that probably is so far from Kirby even being able to mentally understand that, a quarterback or any other position, not wanting to play.
Yeah.
It's just, you're not going to lead Kirby's team. You're just not.
No.
So, and if you're a what do you call that? A timid person. And I really mean this, and I don't have any way of knowing, but I think Jake Fromm the last year regressed. I think it was to a large degree has to do with how much Kirby was on his ass and afraid to turn the ball over. And I think it was also the fact that maybe he wasn't getting as good a coaching as he could have out of Coley. Don't know, but that would be my other guess. But you can't have a shrieking violet. And that was one thing about Stetson. When Kirby got on his ass at the Orange Bowl about clock management at halftime, you saw Stetson would give it right back to him. And that was also like after Stetson won the national championship on that Good Morning America show, he was like, well, I'll have to evaluate. I'm going to play football. I just don't know where it's going to be, and I've got to hear some things from the coaches and staff. At least Stetson, he would be the type of guy that I think you would want to deal with, because you would know exactly where he stood. He's probably stubborn as hell, but he's tough, and he's not going to tap himself out. And I like JT Daniels as far as the skill set. I was probably one of those guys going, "Gee whiz," but JT in, because I was a big believer in JT in terms of the skill set. But maybe he just didn't have the toughness, and now he's retired from football, because I didn't even know he got hit enough to have a concussion issue. Did you?
No.
So I
He's
wish
coaching
him
at
well.
West Georgia.
He's coaching where?
West Georgia.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, good for him. He might be a good coach. And he liked it down here. He told you that personally, right?
Right. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. I like it. As far as skill set and the moxie whenever he came in was lighting it up. And then whenever he said, why recruit him if you're not going to throw it to him? I thought that was a great answer from a gunslinging quarterback.
Yeah, it was a great that answer. That was in the 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the moral of that story is play until your legs fall off, because if you take yourself out, Kirby may replace you permanently. And I think that sort of just goes to his mindset.
Yeah. So check that interview out. I think it's a pretty good interview. I mean, especially given Stetson doesn't really do a whole lot of interviews. I don't think he really likes doing them. I really don't blame him. He wants to have an NFL career. He wants to make a life out of it. And he even said, Stetson could retire tomorrow, set up a restaurant, a sports bar, and have a car dealership somewhere near Athens, and he'd be set for life. He would never have to do anything. And I think he kind of wants to make a name for himself and make his own career out of it. And I'm really appreciative of him. I told him that whenever I saw him walking his dog, and he didn't seem to really mind my interaction. So if you see Stetson, always make sure to tell him that you appreciate him. He likes that. Anyway, I saw this, and it's fairly interesting, especially given that SEC Media Days is in Dallas next week. I don't really like it being in Dallas because now we're really placating to Oklahoma and Texas. But whatever, it is what it is. I think SEC Media Day should always be in Birmingham, personally. I like it that way over at the Hyatt Hotel over there.
Hoover.
Yeah, Hoover. So the SEC championship, I think it's through 2027 or 2026. That's staying in Atlanta. Do you think the SEC championship should be either a rotating venue, or should it change where it's at instead of being in Atlanta?
I think it should be a rotating venue. I got no problem with it. I'm not a big fan of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm not a big fan of Atlanta in terms of, I don't know. I guess I'm biased because I'm close to Atlanta. I don't get it. I would rather go to Dallas or New Orleans to see a Southeastern Conference championship game than I would go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Well, that's where a lot of people pointed Dallas being in Arlington, and Jerry World having it in the Superdome in New Orleans. Also, Nashville's getting a new stadium. The Titans are. Nashville being a place.
Is it indoor or outdoor?
It's like a SoFi.
Okay.
Where we play the national championship. So it's that's, by the way, that's where every NFL stadium is going to end up going, with the reflective roof where you can see outside, even though you're under a roof, but you're really outside because rain can come in. I don't know why that's being the hip design for NFL teams, but that's the era that we're at right now.
I would prefer to be played inside because you're looking at December.
The weather is unpredictable. We have it could be 60 degrees out, or it could be 30. It could be raining.
Ice.
Depending on where you play, it could be ice. To me, I think it needs to stay in Atlanta. Halfway for all the SEC teams, if you're being fair, it'd be Memphis.
Yeah, but they don't have a stadium.
They have they're trying to update the Liberty Bowl stadium. That's a shitty stadium.
Yeah, it is. I hear you, and I think you're just from a traditionalist.
Yeah.
Atlanta, I mean, as far as transportation. Everything connects in Atlanta, so I get that. But to me, I don't have a problem with it being rotated around. I think it'd be fun to go to New Orleans for a Southeastern Conference championship game. I think it'd be fun to go to Dallas. I'd much rather, like I said, I'd much rather go to than to get on MARTA or get on 400 and go to downtown Atlanta and then get out of there. I'd rather have a hotel room in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a tradition thing because with all these new things happening in college football, give me something that I'm used to, and having the SEC, which the game doesn't even matter anymore.
I got a better one. I could go against everything I said about it being played on an indoor stadium because of the time of year it is. Whoever has the best record, we play on their campus.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that at all. But I mean, the SEC championship doesn't even really matter at this point, and I think we're going to see it. I don't know. We might not see it this year, and we might not see it next year. But at some point, these conference games are going to be meaningless, and it's now a money standpoint, and most of the money is going to be in Atlanta. And so I think it's going to stay in Atlanta because of the money situation.
Well, I'll be perfectly happy wherever it's played at, but you're probably right. But you're also right. We talked about it in an earlier episode. To me, you have, but because of this 12-team playoff and the lack of conferences and the expansion, you have watered down the championship game. As a matter of fact, I think strategically, we're going to get into a place in the next if it doesn't change in the next 5 years or so, you're going to start seeing teams load manage.
I think say, hey, this year.
You might. We don't care if we play as long as we're in 12-team playoff, we don't want to go play an extra game. You know what I mean? Like, why do that? So yeah, it's unfortunate.
If Georgia's number one team in the country, why the hell are you going to risk a potential injury just for a conference championship? They try to swing the pot with, you get an automatic buy, or you get an automatic buy. But I mean, I don't know how this playoff is going to work. I mean, if you get a buy, is that a good thing? It could be like baseball, the major league.
It could be. I would. On paper, it sounds like it'd be a good thing. Baseball is not nearly as physical a game.
Well, obviously, but I mean, it could play out that way with the teams, the top 4 teams that have a bye. Maybe one of them only wins the game, and the rest, lose. I mean, who knows what this playoff? We really don't know, and we're just assuming stuff based off previous notions. But we're in a completely different age in college football now.
I agree with that. But Kirby and the coaches are going to tell you, and I believe, especially, I'm just trying to think of the coaches that played and also coach in the SEC. But it will still mean something to Kirby.
Yeah,
to win the Southeastern Conference. That was always Nick Saban's thing, and I think it's a Kirby Smart thing too.
Yeah, well, speaking of 2021, when they lost, Alabama loses, and Nick Saban, I'm really proud of winning the SEC championship. Well, Nick, you lost the national championship, so
right.
I don't know if you should hang your hat on that one.
Well, I think his point was it still means there's a certain number of goals that each team has, and if you play in the Southeastern Conference, you want to win the Southeastern Conference championship.
Speaking of, this will be the last thing, and recruiting, I think we can touch on it next week. I don't think Georgia's done with what's going on. I mean, they've really put together a hell of a class so far, and we'll see what happens. We'll talk about that next video. No, I haven't sent you. I'll send it to you later. But these Oklahoma guys doing exactly what we're doing, bullshitting. And it's what we talked about last week in the last video. It's crazy to me how they perceive the conference and coming into the conference. It's crazy. So they're like, outside of Alabama and Georgia, in the past 5 years, none of these other teams have done anything why are you thinking that Oklahoma can't do anything in the conference? He's wrong. First off, LSU won a national championship. Also, Florida, LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama. Am I missing any? At least 5 have won a national championship more recently than Oklahoma has. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, there's been multiple teams that have done more than Oklahoma. This is crazy to me, the delusion that these fan bases that are coming into the SEC have of the SEC. You're not the big dogs anymore. And just because you're Oklahoma and Texas, not everyone's going to kowtow to you and go, oh, wow, this is your conference too now. This isn't going to that's not how it works. Mississippi State fans are just as delusional as Georgia and Alabama fans. They believe they have the right at something. I don't know what people are on.
I don't. Again, we took a peek at the schedules. I don't either. I think it's going to be the grind of the Southeastern Conference schedule that's going to be an eye opener. But maybe we're wrong and maybe they're right. But I think, I'm just throwing this in. But go and play in Missouri at a noon game, right? And then on a Saturday, and then go and play next week. Go play Mississippi State at a night game.
Right.
And just the grind, the week after week of having to go on the road. Kirby says it ain't easy to win on the road in the Southeastern Conference. And it's not just one game. It's not just 2 games. It's the stacked 2-3 really good opponents over a 5-week period that just grinds your ass down,
Right.
That's what gets to you.
Well, there's that, and then there's also the level of talent. Like Mississippi State wasn't they didn't make a bowl game, but they had 4 guys get drafted in the NFL draft. They're quality teams. Though they record-wise they might not be good, they're still quality teams. And I think that's going to be the shock.
Right. No, I agree. I think they're going to have some they'll catch up because they're big-time schools, big-time programs, and they got a lot of history and pride and tradition. But I believe it's going to be a little bit of an eye-opener for them. Just the grind and the week in, week out, the talent and the size that you're playing in the Southeastern Conference and the atmospheres. I think that could be another thing. You're not going to play Kansas, right?
Right.
At a 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon game
where no one shows up. Yeah, this is a little bit different. So it's silly to me. And I know when the SEC Media Days, we'll do a video on it next week. I'm guessing the 2 teams that will be picked to play in the SEC Championship will probably be Georgia and Texas. I don't see where everyone's so excited over Texas. I just
the returning quarterback that's got a lot of hype, and
I get that, and they have
what they did last year.
Sure, great, but no one's really looking at what's on paper, and they have the notion of what happened last year and the way they looked last year. On paper, they're more middle of the road than what people think. We'll talk about it more later, but like a lot of these teams, Missouri as well. Like Missouri's really, everyone's saying, "Oh, Missouri." They have a ton of talent that left, and I know they have Burden, and I know they have Cook, and I think Cook's a really good quarterback.
That is it.
But I think the hype that everyone has for Missouri, I don't think they're really considering what's going on paper. I think they have what happened last year, and they're looking at their schedule. So
I'm a bigger believer in Missouri than I am Oklahoma.
Well, Oklahoma's at their back end of their schedules pretty brutal.
Just not. I mean, I know we looked at it, but even without looking at the schedule, I will tell you that I think Missouri is a better program right now, and more competitive than Oklahoma is going to be.
I would probably agree with that. All right, so. People have been subscribe. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we get more subscribers. We'll do more content, probably do more interesting stuff. This weekend, Saturday, NCAA, our EA College Football 25 is going to pre-download on my PS5. And then on Monday at 4 o'clock, it'll be available to play. I'm excited. I'll give a review on that. I've already seen some of it. Looks pretty cool. So be sure to keep an eye out on that. We'll do SEC Media Day. So subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want to do. Help us out. Also, we're on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, Terminus Sports _ATL. We're also on Blogspot now. I transferred over the blog because we were having technical issues. So check that out. It's Terminus Sports ATL at blogspot.com. So check that all out. And then our presenting sponsor, Unishippers. Who do you ask for?
Ask for Holland Martin.
Ask for Holland. Give her a shout. Unishippers Atlanta. Be sure to do that. And we appreciate y'all. See you on the other side.